This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. And welcome to the time of the week where I react to all them hot takes that y'all be having in the comment section. So this is it. We're going to jump into it, man. I dropped the first video this week, the expectations for Deshaun Watson in 2023. I did y'all thing on this video. My man Daniel D said, the people that boast that we have a top 5 offensive line, but also at the same time hate Jed. No, I said, basically he's saying, do the people who boast that we have a top 5 O-line, but hate Jed know that he's part of that O-line, right? Like, that's the weirdest thing. That's the weird. This is, the Browns fans don't often get to be spoiled because we just haven't been good. But there is one area in which we are just spoiled. We are so spoiled with offensive line play. We had Joe Thomas for 10 years, and then you get, after Joe Thomas retires, probably one of the better offensive lines of this era. And people still out here complaining about the offensive line. Talking about Jed ain't never going to be Joe. Jed ain't trying to be Joe. Jed just trying to be Jed. Like, that's the thing that's wild to me, is like, a lot of this just started with Jed Wills existing. And people just refuse to let it be a thing with him because they don't like this or that. Like, I've heard the dumbest reasons for people to not like Jed Wills. And this is where I know some of this stuff ain't logical, because like, if you don't like Jed Wills, or you don't think that Jed Wills is the greatest left tackle of all time, there's stuff that supports that argument. You don't have to go to Wacky World to come up with a Jed Wills is not the greatest left tackle of all time argument. Like, he's good, but he's not the greatest. Like, he has areas he needs to improve. Sometimes he drops focus. I've had people on the show that have brought this stuff up with Jed. But that's not how we talk about Jed. We don't talk about Jed as somebody who's good, could be better. We talk about Jed in the context of him being a disaster when he ain't been a disaster. That's been the weirdest thing, right? And it goes to even the point to where, like, so many people talk about Jed as a disaster, to the point to where people feel like they got to overcorrect on Jed. And then when I come in here and I say, yeah, Jed's cool, I wish he could be better at some things, people think I'm hating on Jed now. How did it get so polarized, dog? Like, I've never seen a average left tackle be so polarizing. So polarizing. So many people dishonestly add like all of these other things to Jed that they thought he could be. Oh, I thought Jed was going to be the best in his draft class. He was clearly the guy with the highest upside in that draft class. No, he wasn't, dog. Mekhi Becton was in that draft class. What are we talking about? The Browns did not go high ceiling that year. Like, when people are willing to revise history to make a take about Jed Wills, when you don't even got to do that with Jed. You don't got to do that. He's not such a good player that he's infallible. Like, there's clear things he can improve in his game that he needs to fix so he can be the best player he can be. There's stuff there, but people consistently go to Wacky World for Jed Wills negativity, and it don't make no sense. And that's where I'm like, some of this stuff is just silly. And that's where AFC North Talk panel, that really cleared it up for me, because they was talking about their issues at offensive line. And they're like, yeah, Quincy, Jed Wills, that's a rich person problem. And I agree. Like, that is a rich person problem. Be out here crying about Jed Wills when your quarterback gets 2.9 seconds in the pocket, which is like 0.4 above everybody else in the league. We fine, dog. Our offensive line is really good. John says, really, really good vid. 3 stats. Intended air yard per pass attempt, bad throw percentage, and turnover worthy play percentage are really descriptive when measuring quarterback performance. I appreciate the in-depth insight into expectations of instead of he better win 12 games. Yeah. I find this often, and it's because this kind of stuff is easy to make content around. or at least it's lower effort to make content around. And I'm not saying anybody who does it is untalented. I'm just talking about football and me. I'm not making this about anybody else. So, don't go to your favorite content creator and act like I'm talking about them. But what happens is that it's real easy to get one stat, isolate everything else, and make an entire take about that one stat that could be as hot as cold as cold as you want. Because the thing about numbers is that a number can lie, right? The term is numbers don't lie, not number don't lie. Number do lie, right? If somebody just brings up one stat or maybe two stats, those numbers can lie because you can manipulate those stats with context or different things. How many times are we on Twitter and you'll see like Brown's Pro Football Focus or Brown's stats page put up some kind of like stat where it's like this player has been the top 5 in the NFL at this specific stat at this specific time on Tuesdays. It's like, yeah, of course, you can find a way to make any stat impressive. You can find a way to put any stat for your team in the top 5 if you exclude enough people. Yeah, numbers are the things that don't lie. Number lie all the time. And that's why I make an effort. If I'm going to make an argument, I'm not just going to bring you one stat. I'm not going to say, here's QBR. Because QBR don't tell the whole story, right? But what does tell the whole story is film review, is all the advanced numbers, is the QBR, is the bad throw, is the turnover-worthy plays. All of these numbers that a player accumulates or gets assigned versus on an average, those tell the story of the player. But if you just pick out one stat here and one stat there, you can manipulate that story. That's why I try to make sure that I bring a decent summary of each player's story when I critique them, right? And when I'm saying story, I'm referring to a decent summary of their numbers, a good chunk of the context around those numbers and the context that those numbers have against the rest of the NFL. It's important to bring up all of that because numbers in total, if a bunch of numbers are telling you something, they're probably not lying. But number, oh yeah, you can find anybody anywhere to give you a number on something to make you feel like that. You can find somebody right now that can tell you that Jimmy Garoppolo's the best in the league at something. I bet there's a number you could pull out there where you can find a way to manipulate it and turn it around and flip it enough. Yeah, at home games on Tuesdays, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. There's a way you could do it. One number, two numbers, those can be easily manipulated because those don't require a ton of context. But you bring up a bunch of numbers, you got to bring up a bunch of context, and it's all got to make sense. It's all got to be woven into a tapestry, and numbers are important, as well as film review, right? You got to back up the numbers with the film review. It's a study, man. You can't just sit here and go 63% completion percentage. That guy's trash. It's a complete study. Football is just like anything else that you would study. You can't just walk in there lazy with one or two numbers and think you about to tell the whole story of a whole player. So that's why I make an effort to do with it. And honestly, for me, it's more entertaining of videos because I like it better. My energy's up when I'm doing videos like that. So for me, I just like doing stuff like that. So this video is about how Skip Bayless rules sports talk. And this video wasn't really about Skip Bayless. It's about the era that Skip Bayless created. And I think a lot of you understood that, right? I wasn't making a direct critique of how Skip Bayless individually ruined sports talk. But what this video was about was how Skip Bayless really popularized the cynical nature of sports talk today. Not to say that sports talk wasn't cynical before, it certainly was, but it wasn't as popular as it is now, right? Like a lot of that cynicism was reserved for sports articles in a newspaper, maybe a blog or something like that, but there weren't, like in the 80s or 90s, there really wasn't a lane for shows built around entire media personalities, right? Like Stuart Scott was one of the most popular faces on ESPN, but Stuart Scott didn't have the Stuart Scott show, or a show where he anchored. He was just an anchor on Sports Center, right? That's where the term talking heads come in, because back then there were a lot of talking heads. Now it kind of gets misused because I don't think people are reading off prompters as much as they were in the 90s, where they were just reading off like scripts to highlights, and it wasn't really about being super spicy. It was just about showing you these clips because you didn't have anywhere else to see the clips. Now you can just see the clips anywhere on Twitter. So you have to find a way to separate yourself from these sports networks. So now it's become about the takes. And Skip Bayless, I mean, like, he's the face of this. Him and Stephen A. Smith are the face of the era that we live in. And if anybody embodies the cynicism of today's sports talk, it's Skip Bayless. So that's what the video was about, is how this era of cynicism is really gotten to a point to where I feel like at some point people are going to just be turned off by it and look for something different, because you can only be in an era for so long. And we've been doing this cynical thing for so long that I feel like it's got to change. But one of the comments on that video was, "Hey Q, you do a great job of being critical without being cynical. I think many sports talk personalities struggle finding that balance with that line that separates the two. Well, let's talk about kickers, but that's okay. Yes, I'm just joking." See, look, man, I have thoroughly explained my take on kickers. Half of it, sometimes I'm just leaning into the meme, to be honest, because it's fun to lean into the meme. These live streams can sometimes be a little long, and we gotta have our own fun. But other times, I do feel like I'm genuinely misunderstood when it comes to my kicker take, because I don't see how it's controversial. You know what I mean? I just don't see how it's controversial. But that depends on what you think I think about kickers, because you ask 30 different people, what do I think about kickers? You get 30 different answers. All negative things, mind you, but you will get 30 different answers. I have not done a good job of communicating my take about them. The next video is the most important season in Browns history. A lot of y'all pulled up. It did that thing. We're like, no, 1988 was the most important season in Browns history. It's like, no, we talk about the new, man. I'm not about to sit here and tell a bunch of people the most important Browns season has come before they were born. It ain't even true. The most important Browns season, if it was in the past, would be the one that they won the Super Bowl in. But until they do that, it's in the future. Anthony Woodruff says they're so passive, talking about the Browns back in the day, stockpiling and making choices, playing it safe. Being aggressive lately has been the building for the best roster since the mid to late 80s. The offseason has illustrated how important this is to the franchise. The heat is on Stefanski and Deshaun. And that's a point that I brought up in the video. It's like, hey, the Browns were in that hole for 20 years, not because the lake or the name of the Browns. It was because for 20 years, we had regime after regime, ownership after ownership, that were more worried about playing it safe than taking actual chances, which led us to miss on some of the best talent in that era, despite being in position to have them. That's why the Browns were bad. It's not like some kind of mythical thing. It's not bad luck. It's because you had people making safe choices. And safe choices will make you progressively worse. Tiny bit worse, right? Everybody's okay with just the status quo, just getting a little bit worse because you don't notice it, right? We're just getting a little bit worse. And then 10 years come by, and then you look and you're like so much worse than you started. And then another 10 years come by, and then you're all the way at 0-16. It's not because you were an expansion franchise. Other teams have been aggressive as expansion franchises and found ways to be successful. It's the process that they took, this passive stockpiling, making the safe choices, trying not to be too bad, but trying not to be too good. And it led us to here. What I will say about this era, it's been volatile, it's been explosive, but look, I can't question whether they trying to win or not. Damn well, yes, they taking chances after chances. Just in the last 5 years alone, we have drafted a quarterback number 1 overall. We have gotten rid of that quarterback to trade 3 first-round picks for another quarterback. We have traded for Odell Beckham and Amari Cooper. Like, we have made the moves, dog. Like, this team has been trying to win the last 5 years. And whether they succeed or not, I think that's a better way to go out as a franchise than what they did for the last 20 years, which was this passiveness that I think really killed a lot of the fan base, or at least deaded their passion for this. James Porch says, great content, Q. What do you actually think Watson? Oh, do you actually think Watson won't break the single season passing touchdown record held by Brian Sipe? He'll have 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns this upcoming season. Watson easily cleared that hurdle in Houston. No way Watson has tapped out. Well, I don't know about the touchdowns. I think it's definitely possible. I wouldn't expect him to have the best single season passing year in Cleveland Browns history, but I would say he's probably capable of doing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. Like, I'm not going to be sitting here like shocked, like, oh my God, I didn't believe Deshaun Watson was capable of this if he does it. But, if he does, yeah, like, I think, I don't know how I gave the impression off that would not be within the realm of possibility. I like put the range out, and being well beyond that was in the range of possibilities I gave for Deshaun Watson. Reacting to my worst take ever. So welcome to the Inception Zone, where I'm reacting to comments of a video of me reacting to people saying things in 2019. Reception, y'all. Cottonwood Slim with a very long post who says, ironically, a week or two ago, I was asking myself if you ever go back and look at some of your first videos to see how much you've grown. I liked them at the beginning, but I've noticed the progress. When I actually see an earlier video contrasted with now, the difference jumps out. For one thing, from a video standpoint, the lighting on the new ones makes Q look more natural, but his whole demeanor continues to get better all the time. And he started off great, which is why I watch these almost every day. Keep up the good work and keep getting better. Appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, like, the set itself has gone through so many evolutions as I've moved personally, and as I've like learned more about what I actually need and what I don't need. I used to have to light those old videos. I went to Home Depot and I got like 12 can lights and like a packet of light bulbs. And I used to just light the set like that, and it would be so hot in there. It would be so sweaty. Also, the camera I used back then was a Canon T3i. One of the issues with the Canon, well, two of the issues with the Canon T3i were, one, you could not record a video clip for more than 10 minutes. And when I got that camera in college, it wasn't an issue. But doing YouTube videos where you're often going over 10 minutes, it was a problem. Two, it was only a 1080p camera, which wasn't that big of a deal, but the quality on it had started to show itself. Three, you could not connect that camera and have it be a webcam in any way that was like usable for long form live streaming. So that had to be upgraded over time. I mean, like, just the physical amount of space that my workstation, it used to be like two different things, and now it's like one desk in one area. But the evolution of this channel over the last 5 years has really been something to watch, because I think every year I make big changes to something, just to keep it fresh and to keep making this better, for you and me, and easier for me, so I can put more content out so y'all can enjoy it, so it's like it's a constant push forward. The next comments come from the Browns offensive change, but not like you think. This is one of my favorite videos I've done all off season. Howard says, you are making the comparison to 2022 when Nick Chubb did not get near as many carries as it should have. Make your comparison to 2020 and does it hold water? Yeah, man, I think people have an idea of like what Nick Chubb was doing in 2020, and it's not what they think. Nick Chubb had significantly less carries in 2020. Now, he only played 12 games because he was hurt. He had like 196 carries, but even if you average that out by the games he played, he was getting like 15 carries a game versus last year where he was getting close to 18 carries a game. Again, the run the ball with Nick Chubb crowd can sometimes get ridiculous because they make these arguments, but these arguments they have don't really hold water if you look at what the team's actually doing. And it's like, run Nick Chubb the ball, give Nick Chubb the ball more. Okay, what do you mean? Like, give him the ball like they did in 2020. It's like he got the ball more than he did in 2020. Like, What do you want? What do you want? Right? It's a cry of frustration with the offense. It's not working. And when you look at the run the ball with Nick Chubb crew, not as like people with a serious ideology about football and more or less as people just frustrated with the offense, then you start to understand what's happening there, because I think that's what's going on. People who say that are just kind of frustrated with the offense, and they're using Nick Chubb as their way to express that frustration, versus them saying Nick Chubb legitimately needs to get the ball more because he's not getting the ball enough when he's gotten the ball more this time. Per game. Well, not per game. I believe in 2019, he got the ball like 19 carries a game. But he got the ball pretty much close to what he's always gotten it, if not more. So it wasn't like Kevin wasn't running him the ball, right? Like, I think sometimes we need to take the emotional context of what people are saying to weight versus like taking people literally at their word and being like, oh, okay, you literally want them to run the ball more. No, you just want the offense to work. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the frustration. Mark Brown says, I didn't think this was an issue. Imagine the setup in the passing game will lead to fewer Nick Chubb carries, but they will be higher quality carries because the defense will be having to take the pass seriously. Pass set up the run instead of run to set up the pass. I think Hunt, whom I like as a running back, realize this, and the coaches realized this last year, and they want Hunt to go somewhere where he can get a number of carries he deserves. So a few less carries for Chubb, but more the same yardage per game. The piece that concerns me, but only a little, is what to do with Nick Chubb on passing plays. They have to leave him in a believable amount of time, but they don't want to create a tail. Now, I think I reacted to this in a thing, and I think I reacted a little bit harsher than I should have. So if you see my original reply, I think it was a little bit like I was up at like 3 a.m. on the toilet and I saw that and I was like, that's not even true. But the heart of my reply basically was, Nick Chubb is not like this liability as a passer or as a receiver that some people assume he is. He's all right. He's a decent receiving threat, you know? So I don't think you're going to create a tail or create a problem when you run Nick Chubb out there on third down, or you run somebody else, because Nick Chubb's more than capable of catching a ball out the backfield. Like, he's not useless as a receiver. And I think people kind of lean on the idea of him being useless, and it's not true, because he's not been useless. He's been a useful running back out the backfield. He's able to catch some screens. He's able to catch balls in the flat. Like, he's not going to blow your mind. He's not Christian McCaffrey out the backfield, but for the quality of runner he is, he's a fine receiver in the backfield. So I think that's not going to be as big as an issue as some people are anticipating. But we'll see. But that's it for commentary. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.